Okay, now we're live. So welcome everyone to another town hall. I'm going to share my screen here. Hi, John.
Hey there.
Okay. All right, so let's see. I hate to keep asking about this every week, John. I know it takes whatever time it takes, but are you still working on that fiscal?
I am still working on it. Yeah, if we really need something, I can write something to describe the status quo. It's just that I'm working to change the status quo.
I don't think so. And if it's something that you have on your, if it's an active project that you are working on and you've got it all tracked, I'm just going to take it off of here. I don't think we need to be talking about it as a
This is
weekly
not a
action.
case where I need constant reminders. There
Exactly.
are such
So
cases do exist.
when it's ready, you'll put it on Lumio and we'll take it from there. Okay.
Thank you.
We're not tracking the metrics right now, and I do want to just call attention to this for Adam, because if your proposal goes forward, this would be something worth looking at, whether or not you want to pick this up. Let me just go to my spreadsheet here real quick, because we were tracking weekly metrics, all of these metrics here about hub participation and chapters and Web Central and the help desk and all of this. And we've got pretty charts that show our growth over time and all this. But since we lost some volunteers and things fell back into my lap, this was back in April. These have not been updated. And at this point, it's getting to where it would be a little bit challenging to go back and try to fill in all the weekly data and get back on track, but it's there for you to do with as you please if you think there's
How far back does the gap begin?
April 21st was the last time it was updated.
Oh shoot, we can probably back.
Yeah, I mean the data's there. Certainly all the hub data you can go back, because you can go back and report for any given week window. We really don't know the number of chapters because we never finished the chapter audit, so that's kind of up in the air anyway. Web Central is a little bit tricky because it does not have that facility to go back and say, give me the numbers for this specific week. So we have to kind of look at the current numbers and then just kind of project forward between the middle weeks. The help desk, I can get weekly reporting historically. So yeah, I think the only one that wouldn't be exactly accurate would be Enable Web Central, and that's no big deal because there's not a huge amount of activity there these days. So yeah, if you decide you want to get this current, I can help you do that. I think we can fill in the gaps. It would just be something that we'd have to go in and do some digging on.
Gotcha.
Okay. Whoops, I closed my notes. Give me 1 second here. Let's see, enabled. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at some of the posts of the week. Julie, lesson module. Okay, so Julie Hoyle, let's see, new to the forum. She teaches 5th and 6th grade gifted students, found a lesson module on Thingiverse where students create adaptations for the fingers of the raptor, reloaded as the base design to allow for a specific function, like holding the guitar pick as an example. Seeing from the site that this is not on the recommended list of devices, I'd love for my students to actually provide the enabled devices to real recipients. Need some guidance on how to get started and if I should go with the Phoenix hand on the recommended list and have student design and make adaptations for that hand. I would have somewhere between 5 to 10 hands to send out to recipients at the end of the project with possible date in December 23. So this is one of those cases where, and I'm just looking, I don't know that we have Sarah today.
I think we do not.
Okay, well, this is usually where I would ask her for some help in posting this part of our recording. So I'm going to offer some suggestions here verbally, but maybe I can find some time to do that later. But what I was going to say is that, yes, I would recommend using the Phoenix, probably the Phoenix V3, because not only is that one of the currently recommended designs, but we also have the actual CAD files, the editable CAD files available, including a full Fusion 360 model that can be used, or that can be exported into any one of a bunch of different CAD formats. So it really does give you a better base to work from. I don't even think we had the true CAD models for the Raptor Reloaded, if I recall correctly. So I think this would give you a better base to work from, having editable CAD files, solid body models. And the only other thing I want to point out is it's pretty common that we see this where a group or especially a classroom is going to make a bunch of devices and is kind of expecting to be able to send those to us and for us to get those into the hands of people that need them. And I have to point out that we really don't have that capability right now. We used to have a sort of a collection and distribution point, a group that would, receive these devices, check them over, do QA, and then get them sent off to the places that can use them. It never really got fully functional and has since dissolved, and we haven't really been able to replace that. I do hope that we will be able to come up with some kind of facility for this, but as of now, it really is kind of up to our volunteers and our volunteer groups to sort of explore locally and find their own options for locating recipients.
I have a potential update there.
Okay.
So our friends in Canada, a chapter who I've been in contact with, it's a high school based group. They have just shipped out their first dozen hands to Kabul. Well, specifically to Pakistan, who will then ship to Kabul. But half of those were assembled, half of those were disassembled. We're testing to see, what arrives and how quickly and, in what condition. But if, assuming Wildmont is able to join on, or regardless, it would be a little bit slower if I'm on my own. But one way or another, if we can establish that this shipping route is reliable and not prohibitively expensive, all we would need is to have someone act as a go-between to ensure quality and making sure that the volume wouldn't be too high to make it infeasible to give them the ability to do it. But if we had someone who was able to check devices as a waypoint and then ship them out, or a group of people, or maybe a chapter spread across the country or across several countries, who would be that intermediary point, then any device printed by an e-NABLE volunteer could potentially get in the hands of a recipient.
That would be fantastic. Now, do you think you're going to be able to get some feedback at the tail end of this to actually hear about how many of these devices actually got to people and were actually usable?
Yep.
Okay.
So
that's
I'm
the
in a
piece
WhatsApp
we've never
group.
really had clarity on. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, the Dr. Ramin is the head prosthetist in Kabul at the hospital, the orthopedic center there. And he is always sending me pictures of people who are in need of devices.
Wonderful.
So he will, I'm sure, be sending me pictures of people who have actually received them soon.
Well, that's great. And
yeah.
is it premature then for other people that reach out like Julie here saying, hey, where can we send these devices? I mean, should I connect them with you, or what would be our instructions to them at this point? Just hold off?
Yeah. Let me really soon. I'm hoping that would be the right way to go. I think I'd be very happy to schedule, if there are multiple people. I'd be happy to have like a weekly or bi-weekly touch point to introduce people to the Afghan initiative. I'm hoping that this can also spin off into other targeted global endeavors. So that as we identify other places, like my contact in Kenya and my contact in Nigeria, who might be able to make use of these things. Also, excitingly, if we are able to confirm that we are cleared by the FDA to print leg socket components that could be shipped to a couple of sites in Africa, I think that there's just so much that can and I think should be done.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I think all of this stuff is finally starting to take off a little bit. I'm just waiting to hear that those components have arrived in Kabul, and once that's done, then I think that we can try to establish some kind of process where a maker creates something, it's shipped to someone to ensure quality. Yeah. And then the QA person then forwards it to Pakistan, who then delivers it to
it's something we've been trying to do for a long time. John, I'll come to you in just one second. We have a comment in chat from one of our new participants here, Carolina, who I'm going to have the new folks here introduce themselves in a short while. Just want to go through these posts first. But Carolina asks about, she says that she might have a team who could do this kind of thing, but how would the shipping costs work? And I think that's a really good question. I also, personally, I think that would be a really good use for the e-NABLE fund. In the past, we haven't really used that for things like, shipping a device to a recipient on an individual basis. But when we get into this realm where we're talking about getting a group of devices together and getting those into the hands of people that need them, I think that would be a great use of our funds. It would
I
just be a
agree.
matter of, and it's not that hard. It can be a little bit intimidating, but if you're not a member of our Lumio platform, be sure to sign up for that. And I'm just going to put a link to that in chat here. Anyone can join, and there are, on the very first page you come to here, you're going to see a description of the process. And if you just read through this, it's basically a matter of writing up a proposal that includes, a description of the work to be performed, or in this case, just a description of, what you're looking to do, the expected results or impact, the estimate of the work effort, which is not really applicable in this case. It's more just a straight shipping costs, timeline, the names of the responsible individuals, the amount of funding that you're asking for, and just a brief overview of your work with e-NABLE to let people know who you are. And so all you do is kind of write that up, and then it has to go up just as a discussion, let the community talk about it and offer comments for a period of a week. And after at least a 1 week period of discussion, it turns into a vote, and the community can vote on it. And that voting process takes 10 days, and then that can be approved. Now, having said that, I also want to point out that we have a second mechanism for approving funding, and that is this group right here. Every week in the town hall, whoever shows up to these meetings, and that can be anyone in the community, quite frankly, but whoever shows up, including the three new individuals who I'll have introduced themselves today, you are, for today, members of the Community Coordination Committee, just by nature of the fact that you are here. And anyone that's in these meetings has the right to vote on approving up to $1,000 of funding for any proposals that are put forth. So certainly shipping costs would fall well under that $1,000 limit. So that might even be the
Well,
better way to
ideally.
go, unless unless it becomes something that's really frequent, and we wanted to bring more visibility to it. Maybe at least for the first several of these, it might be easier to just say, bring it here, have all the details ready, get your quote together, and that sort of thing. Tell us how many devices and who they're going to, and that sort of thing. And we can just, by a vote of hands, we can just do it here.
And I might suggest that that we could develop a third path if we had a standing budget for shipping to these kind of targeted,
Sure.
these global initiatives.
That
But
might, so that might be a good way to
it.
use the Lumio platform. Maybe the
Right.
proposal is to establish, like you said, a standing budget up to a certain amount for that
Right.
purpose, and have the community vote on that. That's a good idea. John, I'm sorry, you've had your hand up for a while now. What's up?
Well, a couple of things. I like everything I'm hearing. I wanted to suggest that before opening the floodgates to lots of people saying, oh, okay, I got all these devices that we built, we're going to send them to Afghanistan. We ramp this up gradually, and we make sure that the loop gets closed.
Yeah.
Remember, 3D printed devices often need adjusting and customization. And that necessarily happens on the far end. And that's a challenging task under any conditions. So let's not, as we have done on occasion in the past,
That's right.
create a mechanism that doesn't quite close the loop and get its intended job done, which is just
I agree.
I also want to just point out, and this is maybe for you, Adam, to think about that, I've, as recently as within this last week, I've had inquiries from people saying, hey, I want to start making hands. How do I handle things like getting the supplies I need and materials? And I had to explain, we generally just don't help with that. The volunteers take care of that themselves. But when we start looking at a program like this, where a volunteer is saying, yeah, I'll print a bunch of hands or arms that you can ship overseas, we might want to think about a program where maybe through my company, 3D Universe, I have a whole line of skin tone PETG filaments. Maybe I can contribute materials at no charge to these volunteers if e-NABLE is able to help offset those costs for me, if that could be part of the program that we get approved.
Okay.
That's something we're thinking about too.
So I'm sorry, I'm just really excited because all of these things, every now and then things just kind of align chronologically in a really neat way. So I've, oh boy, where to start on this one? Okay, so thing number one, to the point of closing the loop and ensuring that there's follow-up care, the neat little solution I stumbled into is because we're interfacing not directly with recipients, but with prosthetists, is that my goal here, at least in Afghanistan, I'm not sure that this could be iterated out elsewhere, but everyone I've contacted has been a prosthetist up to this point who's really just looking for assistance with inventory because they're in areas where things are prohibitively expensive, or if they're exploring additive manufacturing techniques like 3D printing, they simply can't get their hands on the appropriate filament. I'm going to try to keep my thoughts organized here, so bear with me. So I'm not as worried about follow-up care because my goal is to provide inventory.
And the customization, I mean, these individuals would know how to do that, the thermoform.
Exactly,
and the adjustments.
which is why the hand should be shipped without thermoforming or anything like that, because they would all of that would be addressed by the prosthetist. So that's thing number one. So assuming that we can provide them with adequate sizing and enough, enough copies, in theory, they should be able to just slap a new one on as the patient requires it. And it can just be integrated into the larger hand, kind of what is it, Theseus's ship, or is it anyway, it doesn't matter. Thing number two, to new members who are joining, I think that we want to hold off on ramping this up too quickly because filament type is going to be a significant thought.
Yeah.
I think that not only color, we also need to consider whether the material is going to be durable enough. Or
we don't want to be sending a bunch of PLA hands over there.
Exactly. And hey, I had a conversation with a person the other day. I wanted to clarify. PETG is distinct from polypropylene, correct?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Polypropylene would it's a strong material, but it's probably too flexible for a lot of our devices. It's good for things like living hinges because it's highly abrasion resistant.
Polypropylene is?
Polypropylene is, but it's as far as I know, it's not a material that you could really thermoform. Because it has tremendous shape memory, so it would just pop back to the original shape.
Oh, interesting. Well, we should probably do a little bit of testing, or at least discussion about what the ideal material is for areas where it's going to be a little bit more rough and tumble.
Well, that's why we already kind of established PETG as our recommended material, because it has a very good combination of strength and temperature resistance, and yet it can still be thermoformed with the application of enough heat.
For lower extremity, the prosthetists that I've been talking to have been really leaning toward polypropylene for the leg socket, probably because it is a little bit more flexible and it's less likely.
And if it doesn't need to be thermoformed, polypropylene is a really cool material and has some great properties. Yeah, it's not one that most people have worked with. It can be more challenging to print, but with the right guidance, with the right adhesive, and these are all things I can help with. It could be a good solution. Yes.
The last thing that I want to speak to is on the subject of cosmesis, the look of the device. A lot of the areas we're talking about, recipients are going to be much less interested in functionality. They're going to be much more interested in having a hand that looks like an actual hand.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of people who can actually fabricate silicone sleeves, like gloves that go over the device, that can be air painted to look like the residual. Tanya Lurch in California, she I think has been active, but she has a community.
I'd love to see one of those.
Yeah, me too. We had a conversation last week about all of this, and she's really excited. She has she has very strong feelings about model type. I know that she really prefers the kinetic hand.
I'm not surprised to hear that. It's the kinetic is a much more natural look. Looks a lot more like the natural anatomy, so it would fit.
And me walking in, I'm just like, anything that gets the job done and anything we can slap on somebody is good enough. But that's really cool. So I think that I think all of these things would be great items to see what survives the shipping and what's the relative cost and what's a realistic barrier to entry that people could clear given their skill level and resources. But once I've got this first shipment in the hands of people in Kabul, I think that's when we can start trying to ramp this up in a way that could be sustained. And I will also say, on the subject of seeking funding, I've been, and maybe this is a topic for a few minutes from now, but I've been in touch with a couple of, I don't want to call them influencers because I don't like that term, but a couple of amputee folks who are active on social media. And I think I've got an inroad for some partnerships and some TikTok collaborations where we could begin actual fundraising and maybe something like a brand awareness push. So lots of exciting stuff.
Hey, John.
That's all great, Adam. Some time ago, Jeremy mentioned that our new members should indeed register on Lumio. I just wanted to review. We do have a clause that says if you're a brand new member, you shouldn't vote on a Lumio resolution, don't we?
Well, I don't know how we phrased it. We have to go back and look, but the idea was that you shouldn't be going out and recruiting people specifically to come in and vote on your proposal, that they should already be members of the community. I don't know that we said anything about how, if you're an actual member of the community, I don't think it matters how new you are. It's just that you shouldn't have been brought in specifically to come and vote on this proposal. I think that was the idea.
Fair enough. Good.
I'm actually going to skip ahead, guys, because I feel bad that I'm keeping our new members here waiting so long. So I'm going to skip ahead. I want to have them introduce themselves and maybe have a chance to ask some questions, and then we'll go back up in our agenda and pick up where we left off. So I want to welcome Allison, Carolina, and Ajer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry. Allison, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having a town hall here. I came to the new members event last week. So I'm an assistant professor at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, a little bit north of Detroit. And I am a professor of engineering. So I have bioengineering students who are very interested in prosthetics. And at Oakland University, we have orthotics and prosthetics program. And so we're really excited to potentially work with them to get locally some recipients who are in need of these devices. And so I'm just trying to join and participate as much as I can to learn as much as I can about the group itself and then how I can get involved.
Well, I'm glad you had a chance to hear the part that Adam just shared, because it sounds like we have some better chances of connecting you with some recipients. Now, you mentioned local recipients. That's a little bit more of a challenge. And I'd have to say that for local recipients, that probably is going to fall more to you. What we can do is probably offer some suggestions of how you might go about doing that. But it really is just a simple matter of getting the word out in your local community. You're already with a school. We often tell people that schools are a good place to start, just because statistically speaking, most schools are going to have at least a handful of people in their student population with limb differences that might be able to benefit from these devices. You can also, put up, we have some printable materials. They might be a little bit out of date now, but I think they're still probably pretty usable. So we have a collection on Google Drive that we can share with you of just like posters and things like that you can print and maybe customize if you want, put up in maybe local libraries, things like that. Maybe even an article in your local newspaper. They're often happy to carry stories about this kind of work. And just things like that, anything that you can do to get out the word locally. Religious organizations are often a good point too. If you go to a church or a synagogue or anything like that, sharing what your work is there can also be a good place to find families that might benefit from this sort of thing. So it's really just kind of a matter of organically getting the word out in the community, and inevitably you're going to find your way to people there that could benefit in that area. Anybody
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Suggestions from anyone else?
I suspect that sometime in the future, the omniscient and ubiquitous Adam Jennings is going to provide some kind of guidelines for outreach to local organizations that might provide access to
Good point.
potential recipients. The fine art of outreach, offering help, not intimidating, and not discounting the value of professional help, is an art that we're still developing. It turns out to be a delicate act of diplomacy to have people welcome amateurs producing non-medical grade devices, which may nonetheless fill really important needs that medical professionals don't fill. So that's just sort of a heads up.
And we haven't really talked about that here, but I'm glad you brought it up, because what we're talking about here, Allison, is doing a better job of connecting with the actual medical community, with the prosthetists, the OTs, et cetera, that already are working with people who maybe they don't have the insurance coverage or can't afford, a professionally produced, device. This could give them an option. But like John said, sometimes they're hesitant if a volunteer just reaches out and says, hey, I can make something. And so one of the things that Adam and another volunteer, Tainara, who is our clinical coordinator now, is working on is establishing some best practices of how to engage with these medical professionals, and probably putting together some materials that we can use to send their way to talk about what we do in a language that they would respond to. And so that might be another avenue that you could end up connecting with recipients through.
Yeah, that all sounds great. I was just talking to our director of our O&P program, and she had the similar concerns, but being now on the academic side after 30 years of clinical practice, kind of understood where I was coming from an amateur perspective, and was able to appreciate both sides. But she brought up very similar comments, so she's going to do some reaching within her network to try to find us some local recipients as well.
That's great.
Great.
Yeah, and I
Great
hope
to have you here, Allison.
It is, and hopefully we'll be able to start to alleviate some of those concerns that we run into in that community, just with better information and some documentation that we'll put together.
I don't want to belabor anything, and I don't want to suck up oxygen. But hi, Allison. Good to see you again. Really quickly, I think that you'll also find a little bit of a generational gap in the O&P community, that professional orthotists and prosthetists, in terms of openness to accepting open source printing and manufacturing techniques as a sort of stopgap, or as a fail-safe for folks who are falling through the cracks. You'll find, I think, that younger prosthetists are much more open to this kind of thing. So as a kind of, a low rent suggestion, if you were to find someone who are newer to the profession, or if you have the ear of students in your community, I think that they're going to be much more excited about this as a potential. I think you'll also find, at the risk of white knighting a little bit, you'll find that people are going to be much more open to this if you're not looking for local recipients and again, this is maybe a little self-serving, but if you're looking for opportunities abroad where facilities and infrastructure don't already exist to support the amputee community. I mean, there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 million amputees globally who do not have any access to prosthetics care. So most of those people do not live in, Europe and the States. So just food for thought.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us, Allison, and please join anytime. These town halls are always open to everyone, and we're happy to help whenever we can. Carolina, if you're there, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, I'm Carolina. I'm currently a student of mechanical engineering in Portugal at Instituto Superior Técnico. And I've always really been into biomechanics and creating something that helps people with mechanical engineering within the field of medicine.
I'm sorry, did you say chemical or mechanical engineering?
Mechanical.
Even better.
Yeah. I already worked with a little bit with some CAD programs, and I am a volunteer at a local biomechanical laboratory. And I would really like to help out where I can.
That's wonderful.
And I've been a member for like 1 hour or two, because I knew, I don't know how you call them, like a group of yours, but I didn't know it was a group of yours, So I just discovered this community, and I really liked what I saw. So I'm here.
So good to have you. And it's always nice when we get people with these really special skills who can actually help us improve designs and that sort of thing. I hope I'm not telling you things you already know here, but pretty much every design that's in our catalog is open source, completely free for anybody to use, work with, modify, improve upon. Some of these designs have the full CAD models available, so you can even download, fully, solid body CAD models and work with those. And there are some working groups that work together to, like, for example, next week we have a bionic design group that's going to be meeting next Friday, and they work on some of those powered designs and trying to improve those options. So I think there's lots of opportunities for you to contribute. Oh, John, I see you have your hand up too.
Yeah, Carolina, pleased to meet you. I'm going to be giving a speech about e-NABLE in Lisbon, the end of November, beginning of December. And I have been to Lisbon once before, but I understand that there is e-NABLE activity there, and I'm eager to find out more about it. So I'm going to put my email right here in the chat, and I would love your help figuring out how to make good use of my time while I'm there. I'm allowing some extra time for travels within Portugal or elsewhere in Europe. So I would love to compare notes and see how we can make the most of this.
Yeah, sure. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
That's great.
And I will for sure hear you speak.
Wonderful. Welcome.
John, feel free to let me know if you need any of my information for my ticket.
Information
that was a joke.
All right.
Okay. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing this right. Is it Azer? Help me out on how to pronounce your name, please.
That's right, Jeremy. Good morning, good evening, everybody. My name is Azhar, and I've been working in the IT industry for quite some time. I basically work as a cloud architect with Oracle at the moment. And yeah, I've come across e-NABLE. I saw a lot of projects, and I felt I should volunteer whatever skills I have that I could help with. There are a couple of reasons that I have thought about this. One is, of course, I'm a contributor to my own local communities here. I live in Hamilton, closer to Toronto, in Canada, and my best friend's son, he has walking disability, and it's by birth. And he immigrated recently from India, and he used to order some parts from the States before, but they were really expensive. And yeah, that was the reason why he moved in here. And yeah, I just want to see how best I could, put my, technical expertise in whatever way possible for this project. And also, if it's possible, if I could work on any, projects with respect to prosthetics, to help him, that'd be really great.
Well, it's great to have you, Azir, and you can certainly get involved with projects related to the prosthetics and the designs, but I would probably be even more excited to see you involved on the IT side, because we have some real needs for help with our infrastructure.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to get into the details today, only because of limitations of time. I would love to talk with you another time. Maybe we could even have a one-on-one session, but a lot of the infrastructure sort of management has kind of fallen into my lap. There were some other people helping who have kind of gone other directions, and I could really use some help. For example, most of our online assets right now are hosted on Azure, and we've had a lot of issues with that I'll explain to you another time. I would love to try to get things into a better situation to make sure that we are minimizing costs and making it easier to manage, and just a bunch of other things that I would love to discuss with you when there's some time. So maybe you and I can connect. I'm going to put my email in the chat here. If you don't mind, could I ask you to maybe just send me a message, and we could maybe arrange a Zoom call and talk a little bit further? Would that be okay?
For sure, absolutely. I would love to help, for sure.
Okay.
I'll share my LinkedIn connection request, and probably we could take it forward from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Great to have you here, and I look
My
forward
pleasure.
to talking more.
Same here.
And Luisa, you're not a new participant. You've been a long time volunteer, but since you haven't been with us here in a town hall in a while, maybe you could sort of reintroduce yourself and say hello. Luisa?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm back. I usually have problems with the connection here. Well, I am from Venezuela. Okay, we recently began a e-NABLE chapter we are working with high school students. I am an architect, but I am trying to work this at a high school. Okay, we're working we're trying to teach students how to make build with purpose and use the 3D printers with purpose. Recently, our makerspace got two 3D prints, and we found that this project would be perfect to engage with the students and help a lot of people that in Venezuela have absolutely no access to any sort of prosthetics. So right now we are helping 3 people. They are transradial amputees. What we have found is that most of the amputees here are traumatic amputations, and the need for the arm, like the unlimited arm or the coagul, I think it's the name. We already built 3 arms, and we've had a little problem with the short residual limb, and we are trying to make something that helps with the leverage. We are working like a little cone that would function as a socket, and I don't know if you have any experience with this. And we are right now trying to print the coagul, but we're still not finished. We have found we have found it a little bit harder to print and to assemble it. So that's what we've been working on.
I've heard that before. It's wonderful to have you here, Luisa, and it's great work that you're doing. I don't know that I was fully aware of the situation and the lack of access there in Venezuela. I've heard similar things about the Kwao arm being a little bit more difficult. I don't have experience with, in fact, any of the arm designs, unfortunately. I just haven't gotten into that myself. Does anyone else here, and John, I see you have your hand up. Do you have any advice to offer here?
I think what you're describing is an elbow that is an arm that ends just below the elbow.
Yes.
And
exactly.
That is a difficult situation because they may have a bit of motion, but they don't have leverage, and it would put a great deal of pressure on the arm. I worked with Chang Lu a few years ago to adapt a different kind of socket, which goes behind the elbow and fits very firmly on the elbow. Now it limits the ability to move, but it at least takes the pressure off the flesh. And so that's something to consider, is a special socket that fits around the elbow. And then you have another question, which is maybe they don't have enough musculature in order to actually manipulate the arm. It's still a valuable cosmetic thing to have an arm, and there have been some designs where you can put a latch on the elbow so that they can use their existing arm to adjust it to a position that they want.
Well, so, and
that's actually the case with one of the people with one of the guys we're helping. He's an adult, and he's so happy. He's so happy. Just I mean, he's having difficulty to moving it, but he's so happy just for the aesthetic part, for the and he just feels it's so important for me, to feel complete, to have balance. And even though he still has trouble because he also has a short residual limb, but he's happy, even though we could make it better. But
well,
the aesthetic part is
that's the important part.
Yeah.
If he's happy, I'm happy, because it shows that you are setting expectations appropriately and you're providing the right kind of support. So
And
congratulations.
another thing to think
That's
about
great.
is, if there's not enough, like for the wrist-driven devices, if there's not enough anatomy past the wrist, you basically move to an arm device and use the elbow. If there's not enough anatomy there at the elbow to provide the leverage, you move the next step up to a shoulder actuated device. And there are some options with a harness where, you can use the shoulder movement to actuate the device instead. That might be worth considering.
I haven't seen those devices, the shoulder activated. I haven't seen them in the e-NABLE device list.
Well, they haven't been
if you
very
have-
well adopted, but there is the NIOP system so if you go to the device
Okay.
catalog, all devices, it's down here under, it's got a special category here, NIOP modules. And it's a
Okay.
little complicated, which is why it hasn't been well adopted. But if you browse through here, if you go to the main NIOP category here, there's a link here for getting started. And there's also a device wizard to kind of help you find your way to the right design. But there is information in here about these, including, like you can see a little
Okay.
picture there of the arm actuated devices and how you can get to those. So
Okay.
it's something that you could take a look at. I don't know whether or not that would be the right solution for you. It's just another option you can explore.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I will look
Louisa,
into it.
you're dealing with challenging cases and you're dealing with them very well. So
Yeah.
looking at the NIOP and then thinking about what might you do along those lines is probably a good approach. As you can see, there's plenty of opportunity for engineering, learning, and development in the process.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah. That's what we found out. Yeah. Thanks.
the special socket that you worked with Chang Lu to create, is that something that can be shared, or is it too
No,
specific?
absolutely. I
the
will, in fact, she ended up doing a thesis on it. I will find both of those things. Louisa, have you put anything in the hub asking about this? Or
Not recently.
Okay, so if you give me your
A few
email.
weeks ago. Okay.
Actually, I will post into the forum. I'll post into the forum and I'll flag your name. Are you in
Okay.
the forum, Louisa? On the hub?
Come.
Are you on
Yeah.
the hub?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes. I'm on the hub.
Great.
Yes.
Well,
Will do.
congratulations
My
on your
email
new
here.
congratulations on your new chapter. It sounds like you're doing wonderful work. And as John said, it's great that you're obviously setting the right expectations. And if people are happy, that's the best thing to hear. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you for all the support, because this is very important for people like me that have no experience on prosthetic previous work, and we can try and we can help people because of all the open source and all the support that you guys gave. So thanks a lot.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. It's so nice to see so many new or returning members here in the town hall, and you're always welcome to join us for these same time every week. I'm just going to jump back up and pick up where we left off. Then we're just looking at some of the posts from the hub this week. So this next one is from Rishab. Let's see what this is. I didn't have a chance to review these in advance today. I'm sorry. So Rishab held a workshop yesterday where they assembled a number of unlimited arms. Still need to string a number of the arms. We used the 0.5 millimeter 100-pound fishing line recommended in the string video for some, and the string provided in the kits for others. The 0.5 millimeter fishing line seems to be very strong, but limits the functionality of the arm, while the string provided in the kit seems more functional, but I'm worried about the strength as they look quite fragile. Okay, so I assume he's referring to the kits that my company offers, and I will say that those strings are quite strong. They are, well, I don't know that it's 100-pound, but it is 80-pound test line, if I recall correctly, that we're using. So, I mean, 80 pounds should, I would think, be plenty strong for typical usage of these devices. I've been using that in devices I've made for years, and I've seen breakage elsewhere, but not the strings. So I would think that it's certainly strong enough, but he's asking if anyone has recommendations on a better balance between functionality and strength. So does anybody else know of alternatives of good, strong, thin lines? I know people have talked about various types of fishing kind of leader line, but I don't know that I have the specifics to recommend something in particular. Does anyone else know of anything specific that we could recommend?
Not really. There are braided lines.
That's what we include in our kits. It's a braided
Okay.
fishing line. Yeah.
Okay. I got nothing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would say maybe do some testing. And I'm saying this to Rishab, you know, with the string that we include in our kits, you might find that it's stronger than you think, because I've never heard any issues reported with breakage. It was selected specifically because of the strength. And like I said, if I recall correctly, it's an 80-pound test line that we use. So maybe you know, build a test rig, or you know, just put a lot of pressure on it and see how it holds up. Maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised with just sticking with that. And by the way, I'd be happy to point people to the source of what we get and where we get it from. We buy all that stuff for the kits in bulk. It comes on really kind of a big reel, but it's, as I recall, it's not all too expensive. So if you want to just get a whole big reel of that for yourself, I'd be happy to point you to where we get ours from. Also a recommendation to the Unlimited Arm design team, just like we have a 3D printed mold for the armlet portion of the hand. So they're talking about the cuff, the part that goes over the forearm. It would be very useful to have a printed mold for the forearm portion. This is an interesting point, because I've heard that the arms can be very challenging to thermoform properly. And he says having a separate mold for the right and left hand would decrease the building time considerably and also improve the strength of the design, as constant heating of the PLA part during the assembly probably reduces the overall durability of the finished product. So that's a really interesting idea. As I think about it, and again, I'm not very experienced with these arm designs, but when I'm picturing the Unlimited Arm, it kind of has almost like a wraparound. It's not like the cuff on the Phoenix hand where it just kind of lays over something. It kind of wraps around the arm, if I recall. And so I'm just wondering if that's something that I guess you could build a sort of a template mold for that, even if it's something that you had to kind of wrap it around. I don't know that anybody has really done that, but it's really an interesting idea to provide kind of a thermoforming template. That team is, last I heard, the primary team on that design is still Team Unlimited. They're out in the UK. We don't often have communication with them. I don't know that they're active in the hub, so I don't know if they're going to actually receive this. I might suggest, and again, I'm hoping that we might have a chance to post links to these parts of our recording today on these posts as comments. But if you actually go to the Team Unlimited website, which I'm not sure I recall the address for, let's see, here it is, teamunlimited.org. I would suggest that you use their contact page and reach out to them directly to provide this feedback, because if it's just something that's posted in the hub like this, I kind of doubt they're going to see it. So we might want to reach out to them, because I think that's a really good idea. Anyone else have anything to add on that one?
Jeremy, I'm playing. I see that you're taking notes, and thank you, because I could have helped, but I didn't. But I am recording this on Fathom, and I've highlighted a couple of snippets of video, which I will attach to the relevant hub posts.
Oh, that would be really helpful. Thank you, John. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I would have a chance to get back to that. So that's great. And the last post here we have is from Wes. Newbie here in Southern California. I'm having trouble getting an understanding of how I get started as a volunteer maker. How does one determine community needs? Where can I look for clients in need of these services? How much demand is there for these services? I'm retired and I have time to devote to this if there's a need. Who can I communicate with to get started with the basics and understanding of how to get started?
That's weird. We've never gotten a post like this before.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Sarah already welcomed him. There's plenty you can do. Feel free to send me a message and I'll invite you to our next Zoom meeting for new members. Okay, good. Hopefully we'll get him into one of the new member meetings. I think that's a good start. We have long recognized the need to do a better job with onboarding our new volunteers and helping them to find their way to the information they need to get started. This is something that I think will greatly improve if we can get this proposal going for engaging with Wildmont, because that's, I'm sure, going to be a core part of, one of their kind of core goals is improving member engagement. And so this would certainly seem to be a big part of that. So Wes, hang in there, bear with us. We have a lot of good things in the works, but as of now, I think getting into one of these new member meetups and being able to talk more interactively there would be a really good next step. Anybody else have advice for Wes in getting started?
Yeah, I don't have advice. I mean, honestly, this is kind of the thing that I intended to address when joining e-NABLE in the capacity that I find myself. it's a really complex thing, and I think that I think we're really getting close to finally having the right mix of resources and time to start developing some guidelines here. I know that Sarah sent me an email from someone. She forwarded an email with, who was it? One of our regular contributors. I'm going to see if I can find it. Oh, it's Brent. John, I think you were involved. Brent Hollers.
Yes, yes.
So I think Brent.
I think he's going to be joining. I think they settled on July 28th is when he's going to attend a meeting for the educational meeting.
Yes, it looks like he's interested in addressing this specifically, like developing some kind of onboarding guidelines. I know that that's really solidly within Wildmont's wheelhouse in terms of the kinds of things that we're interested in producing. Just setting some standard processes in place and making sure people have the education. I think building something like a more easily accessible and readily apparent knowledge base so that new members and old members can access it, contribute to it, and have a little bit more to go off of. But this question of like,
Adam, I just want to jump in real quick, if you don't mind, to say that a lot of us might not remember that we actually have this page that I'm showing here, this launch pad, which was designed by our last intern that was trying to address this exact challenge of providing a better onboarding path. We never really kind of took it across the finish line as far as kind of promoting this and making sure that people find their way to this page. But it is still, I think, a very helpful resource. It lays out kind of how to use the hub. It talks about our governance. It talks about some of the common question areas, and then basically instructions for getting started by role. If you want to get started as a maker, as a chapter, as a device recipient, as a school group.
That's awesome.
So,
and I've walked through that whole thing and I completely forgot about its existence.
Yeah.
So
that's
on me too.
So John, please point Wes to this as one possible next step as well.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Okay, well, moving on then, our next recurring meeting is, as I mentioned earlier, our Bionic Design Group next Friday. That'll be immediately following the town hall. So if anyone's interested in the powered devices, bionic devices, things like that, please join for that, and you'll find the details in the hub on the calendar. And moving into our discussion topics, as we are just about out of time here, all I really have a chance to do before we wrap up here is kind of sum up where we're at on the Wildmont proposal. And let me just see, because it might have even changed within the last few minutes here, for all I know. There has been active voting, and whoops, I have to find my way back to the right page here. e-NABLE and polls. Okay, so as of now, we have 18 agree votes and 2 disagree votes. And what that means our voting rules currently are as follows. To be approved, each project proposal must have at least 20 total votes. So we have met that benchmark with at least 80% of the total votes in support of the project. We have 80%. 10% or more disagree votes would require discussion in a town hall meeting. So as of now, we are sitting right at 10% disagree, which means that if we don't get any more votes and it stays exactly as it is now, in next week's town hall, we would have to have a discussion. So the vote is set to end next Thursday. We would not finalize any decisions. We would just let it wait until the following day so that we could allow for a conversation in the town hall. And then I guess during that town hall, we would take a vote on whether to do anything differently or allow the proposal to go forward, since it has met the 80% support threshold and the 20 vote threshold. My guess is that between now and then, we're going to get a handful more votes, and they will probably push us over that threshold so that we will not be in that position, but that's where we stand right now.
A couple of folks have messaged me indicating they still need to vote.
I figured. And I just posted something this morning in the hub inviting people to please jump over and vote if they haven't already. And I think that led to 1 or 2 new votes as of this morning. So yeah, I'm sure we're going to see a few more. So we'll revisit this next week, but it's looking really good. I'd say it's very, very likely that this will pass.
I just want to say really, go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
As the studio audience can see, every vote really does count. The next person who votes may change the situation.
That's right. One way or the other, could go in either direction with the next vote. So,
Well,
yeah.
let me just say really quickly on the subject of the kind of work the Wildmont will be doing, and if there is no Wildmont, that I will be doing at a slower pace. The discussion that we had, the new member meetup last week with Chad Lehman with Makers Making Change, was really exciting. And I'm hoping to work with Chad in the coming months to boost both the state Assistive Technology Act state champion thing that we've been trying to get going, which I think actually has a lot of traction. And also some news on this rehab engineering front in terms of giving more people more things to do. I think that a partnership between e-NABLE and Makers Making Change could be really exciting and really supercharge this. So more on that later, but I just wanted to throw that out that these are all things that are currently in the works.
Guys, I apologize, but I actually just now am getting a phone call that I have to take. I'm going to have to wrap this meeting up
We're at time.
abruptly, and I will see you next week. Thank you all
Thanks,
for
Jeremy. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.